Hi folks, Lauren here, This Week in Weed TV. Just a quick episode here, probably around 12-13 minutes, just talking about cannabis legalization and some of the nuttiness. People want good oil? This is how you get good oil. Right now, on This Week in Weed TV.
Well, now it's all going to pot, whether we like it or not. Best I can tell, the world's gone to hell, and we're sure gonna miss it a lot. All of the whiskey in Lynchburg, Tennessee, just couldn't hit the spot.
Hey folks, Lauren here, This Week in Weed TV and medical-cannabis.health and mcuap.net, This Week in Weed TV. So, I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of things. I'm going to avoid the whole oil thing because, unlike most activists, I have never made oil and I've never grown a plant. I am a weed eradicator. I'm happy to take some responsibility for doing some eradication from various techniques. But in terms of actually, So I want to talk a little about legalization and prohibition. And I'm going to try and be really quick. First off, I've seen some really stupid videos recently talking about legalization and even some even more stupid panels about legalization. Hey, I'm no expert. I was lucky enough to live in California when we legalized it 21 years ago. I've been advocating in from various ways for about 40 years. My family have been growing legally in California since it was legal and perhaps before, for the dispensaries and making oils and growing and doing all the things I never did, because who needs to when you've got people that are actually doing a better job than you could. So the issue really, as far as I'm concerned, is legalization. I've seen some people in some groups say, why can't we do it like California and Canada does and remove prohibition? They don't know what prohibition means. Because prohibition in the U.S. at least is pretty much federal. Prohibition doesn't tend to be a state-by-state thing, but even if it was, because they legalize it, because they decriminalize it, prohibition hasn't been removed. It's got nothing to do with prohibition. The reason why prohibition is important in this discussion is there are a lot of people in Australia that think that to make cannabis legal or more available in Australia, they need to remove all prohibition. Hasn't worked anywhere in the world. So my view is pretty simple, is if you want to have legal access to cannabis, to change the laws, you have to change the laws. If you want to fix the laws, you have to fix the laws. The best way to fix the laws is to introduce a bill. If you had a rally of 1 million people in Australia tomorrow to legalize and give access to cannabis, the only way that would happen would be to get a bill introduced. So then people say, well, wait a minute, didn't we just have a bill that was launched in the Senate in March of this year, 2017, that then just failed recently in August? Well, then why aren't the activists supporting it? Well, I won't go into a lot of the reasons why. I've had my share of death threats from people already saying they don't like the reason why I'm saying these things. But the simple issue is they don't have any interest in it. The black market is thriving. The government, by changing the definition of cannabis last year, has created a new black market in pharma and CBD, synthetics, GMO, hemp without THC in it. So as long as we have something called medical cannabis in Australia, unlike the rest of the world, that doesn't need to include cannabis, doesn't need to include THC, even though it's called medical cannabis, this is all part of the game. So all the bills that came out in 2016, there's probably about 10 of them, quite a few in Victoria, even bills that were made cannabis more dangerous and increased further penalties. Even some of the bills without even using the word cannabis in the bill. All the mess. Nobody really supported the bills. Doesn't really matter the reason why. But the mess that the cannabis community is in now how much of that would go away if it was all legal? Why doesn't anybody want it legal? Why isn't anybody talking about, well, let's make it legal? No, let's have a rally, let's have a protest, let's have a barbecue, let's have 2 barbecues. For what purpose? The best outcome you can have of any of that is to get a law passed. To get a law passed, you need a bill. You change the laws by introducing a bill, fixing old laws, or introducing new ones. It's no more complicated than that. If we didn't have good bills on the table already, then you could say, well, we need to get an MP to sponsor a bill. But like I've joked around with some Canadian activist friends, they said, well, we sued our government 12 times, 8 times successfully, and the best we could do would be to get a bill like the one you've got in Australia that none of the activists are supporting. So Australia's a bit of a laughingstock, because part of it's because the media's not talking about it, because they only report sound bites. The government's against it, so they're not giving the media sound bites. That we don't have investigative journalism in Australia. They report off the sound bites. You ask a journal why they tell a lie in a story about medical cannabis in Australia, you go, we're not telling a lie, it's got nothing to do with truth or fact, we're just reporting the soundbite. The government gives us an angle, and that's what we're actually reporting. It's silly. So bottom line of that, if you want to legalize cannabis, if you want to have access to legal oil, if you want to know if your oil is good oil or bad oil, the only way to do it is to legalize it. The police are not to blame, they don't make the laws. F the police. Doesn't help, because F the police, they don't make the laws. It's the politicians. Should be F the politicians. Except the ones making the good bills. Those you need to support. So there's a bill in New South Wales pending, will come up hopefully within the next 6 weeks. As soon as the budget stuff is over in New South Wales, Labour New South Wales will introduce a framework bill, probably called something like the Adam Searle Medical Cannabis Bill, New South Wales 2017. Bit of a mouthful. It would be similar to the Foley bill that was launched in the Senate in New South Wales in the lower house or legislative assembly on March 9th, 2017. That bill failed. It was expected to fail. But hopefully the new bill, which will be a carbon copy of it pretty much, will get presented, tabled in the upper house by Adam Searle, MP, leader of the opposition, Labour, leader of the opposition in the upper house legislative council, and hopefully that bill will pass, but it's going to be a close one. The way that you can have it legalized, folks, is to actually support the bill. If you live in New South Wales and you live in a Labour district, tell your MP, hey, there's a new cannabis coming out, well done on supporting it. If you live in New South Wales and you're not in a Labour district, go to your MP and say, hey, why aren't you supporting this? If you've got a sick family member, that's how this whole thing started going the right direction initially, till certain activists screwed it up. It was all about mothers with sick kids. That's still the best way to do it. Get those folks in front of the MPs and get the law passed. Cannabis needs to be legalized state by state. Once it passes in New South Wales, that framework can then be rolled out state by state. So pretty much cookie cut. The new bill is only 17 pages long, folks. Have a read of it. It's on all my sites. That's the similar sort of bill that's going to come out. It legalizes home grows. It legalizes making your own oil. It legalizes buying from the black market. Hopefully good products. Don't get me going. Using a caregiver. That's growing your own. That, while it forces supply to be addressed, currently there's no licenses for legal cannabis with THC in Australia because there's no legal conditions for it. There's no demand because there's no legal demand. There's no legal demand because cannabis with THC is banned for every condition there is. It's all being pushed through the TGA. Should be the THC. The TGA and the government health Department of Health control that. The ODC controls the licensing. There's no licensing for something there's no legal demand for. It's all a bunch of red tape to stop people from getting access. It's not rocket science, folks. If you want to legalize cannabis, if you want to have the decent oil, if you want to be able to get your products tested, you're going to have to legalize it. Sorry, black market folks. I know you don't like that very much. If they were smart, they would look at Denver, they'd look at California, they'd look at Canada, and realize all the black market crap that's going on out there. If they're making decent product, once it's legalized, guess what? You can then get permits, and you can then, in the interim, still be offering it to folks and still be making it, and then eventually selling it legally. But you got to do it the right way. And the best, easiest way of doing it, supporting a bill to legalize cannabis that's coming out in September, late September, early October. As soon as the budget stuff is out, first session in New South Wales is September 12th. It will take a couple of weeks for all the budget poop to get through, hopefully 2 weeks. And then the third week so it's 3 weeks starting. So it's around 1st of September, or 1st of October, end of September. On a Thursday, the bill will get tabled by Adam Searle and the council, and then it can be legalized within weeks. That's all we're really talking about. But folks have got to support the bill. So all that my sites point to it, just consider it. Say I'm full of BS, it doesn't matter, but you gotta, there's no point having rallies and protests and free the weed and snuff, because the best you can do is get a bill that's already out there. If it wasn't already out there, then that's hard work. This is easy. You can legalize it. If you don't like the bill after it's done, guess what? You've already got a bill to legalize cannabis. You can improve on it. It's going to be better than we are now. So me and my little friend, angry as we are, peace, love, legalize cannabis. Legalize medical cannabis first. It's not about prohibition. If you focus on prohibition, 25 years. It hasn't worked anywhere else in the world but Portugal. And if you look at the guys at Portugal, they'll tell you, because they told the delegation from the UK, that it wouldn't work outside of Portugal because of the social economic demographic there. You got to legalize it. You got to get prohibition out your mind. Prohibition is a great ideology. Nobody's saying everybody shouldn't have it and the rest of it, but baby steps. You legalize it for 10% of the population first, and then you can do it like the rest of the world has done. California, Colorado, all the states have legalized it. Canada in 2001. You got to remember, we did it in California in '96. This isn't rocket science, folks. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, and if you do, hey, that's great, but at least consider leaving round on the table. Over and out.